The morning sun barely pushed through the thin curtains in Andre's one-bedroom apartment. He had been up since 4 a.m., too nervous to sleep. Today was the day that could change everything. His fingers trembled slightly as he adjusted his tie for the 5th time, studying his reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. "You got this," he whispered to himself. "Just be yourself." The words sounded hollow even to his own ears. Being himself hadn't exactly opened many doors so far. Andre had been job hunting for 8 months now, sending out application after application, only to face rejection or, worse, silence. But this time felt different. Wilcox Marketing had actually called him back. Impressed by his portfolio despite his lack of fancy degrees or connections. Outside his window, the sounds of the neighborhood coming alive drifted up, children shouting as they headed to school, car engines reluctantly turning over in the cold morning air, and someone's radio playing old soul music from an open window. This was home, the place where Andre had grown up, left for college with big dreams, and returned to when those dreams didn't quite pan out. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Praying for you today, baby. You're going to shine." Andre smiled, feeling a lump in his throat. His mother had worked 2 jobs most of his life to keep food on the table and to help him through community college. Now at 58, her hands were swollen from years of cleaning houses and working night shifts at the hospital cafeteria. He was determined to get this job not just for himself but for her too. The small apartment was filled with reminders of their struggle and resilience. The couch had been patched so many times it was more repair than original fabric. The kitchen table was a yard sale find that Andre had sanded and repainted. But everything was clean, organized, his mother's influence. "Just because we don't have much doesn't mean we can't have pride," she always said. Andre checked his watch, an 18th birthday gift from his uncle. It was time to go. He couldn't risk being late. The bus in this part of town was unpredictable at best, and he'd planned to arrive at the interview location at least 30 minutes early. He took one final look at himself in the mirror. The suit had been a splurge, costing nearly a full month's worth of the part-time warehouse work he'd been picking up. But as his uncle always said, you gotta spend money to make money. The navy blue fabric looked sharp against his dark skin, and the fit was good enough. Though not quite perfect since he'd lost weight during these stressful months, his portfolio was neatly tucked into a leather folder, another investment. Inside were examples of the graphic design work he'd done for local businesses, mostly for free or at deeply discounted rates, just to build his portfolio. There was the logo for Ms. Purley's Bakery, flyers for Pastor Wallace's community events, and even a small campaign he'd created for a local politician who couldn't afford professional marketing. The walk to the bus stop took. Andre passed familiar neighborhood landmarks. The corner store where he'd bought penny candy as a kid, the basketball court where he'd spent countless hours perfecting his jump shot instead of running with the wrong crowd, and the community center where he now volunteered teaching basic computer skills to seniors. People called out greetings as he passed. Looking sharp young blood, old Mr. Washington called from his porch, where he sat every morning with his coffee, rain or shine. "Big day today, Mr. Washington," Andre called back with a wave. "Then it's a day for big blessings," the old man responded, raising his mug in a toast. The encouragement of his community wrapped around Andre like armor. These were the people who had watched him grow up, who had stepped in when his father left, who had celebrated every small victory. They were counting on him too in their own way. At the bus stop, Andre checked his portfolio one more time, reviewing the talking points he'd practiced all night. Wilcox Marketing was looking for fresh perspectives according to the job posting. His lack of experience at a big firm might actually be an advantage if he could show them how his background gave him insight into untapped markets. The bus arrived, miraculously on time, and Andre found a seat near the front. As the vehicle lurched forward, he watched his neighborhood recede behind him. The scenery gradually changed as they moved toward downtown. Buildings grew taller, streets became cleaner, shops more expensive. This was the city he saw in advertisements, the glossy version that tourists visited. His heart rate increased as they got closer to his stop. The night before, Andre had researched everything he could about Elizabeth Wilcox, the founder and CEO of Wilcox Marketing. She had built her company from the ground up 20 years ago, starting as a one-woman operation and growing it into one of the most respected marketing firms in the city. Articles described her as tough but fair, innovative, and someone who valued authenticity over pedigree. She might actually give me a real shot, Andre had thought as he read about her, unlike some of the other places he'd interviewed, where he'd felt dismissed the moment he walked through the door, where the interviewers had glanced at his address and made assumptions. The bus stopped several blocks from the Wilcox building, and Andre decided to walk the rest, giving himself time to calm his nerves in the fresh air. He checked his watch again. He was still 45 minutes early. Perfect. As he walked, Andre mentally reviewed his answers to potential interview questions. Why Wilcox Marketing? Because they created campaigns that spoke to real people, not just the wealthy or privileged. What could he bring to the company? A perspective that most of their current employees probably didn't have, an understanding of communities they might want to reach. Lost in his thoughts, Andre almost didn't notice when he reached the address. Looking up, he saw the sleek glass building that housed Wilcox Marketing on the 10th floor. His heart skipped a beat. This was it, the opportunity he'd been waiting for. In the lobby, Andre approached the security desk, suddenly aware of how out of place he felt. The guard looked him up and down with a barely concealed expression of suspicion. "I have an interview at Wilcox Marketing," Andre explained, keeping his voice steady and professional. "Andre Taylor." The guard checked a list, his eyebrows raising slightly when he found the name. "ID," he said, holding out his hand. Andre provided his driver's license, waiting patiently as the guard scrutinized it, then his face, then back to the ID again. Finally, he was given a visitor's badge and directed to the elevators, 10th floor. "They'll check you in up there." "Thank you," Andre replied with a genuine smile, refusing to let the guard's coldness affect his mood. The elevator was mirrored, giving Andre one more chance to check his appearance. He straightened his tie, adjusted his collar, and practiced his smile. The portfolio felt heavy in his hands, weighted with hopes and possibilities. When the doors opened on the 10th floor, Andre stepped into a world that seemed designed to intimidate. The reception area of Wilcox Marketing was all clean lines and modern furniture, with large photographs of their most successful campaigns decorating the walls. A sleek desk sat in the center, staffed by a professionally dressed receptionist who looked up as he approached. "Good morning," Andre said, projecting confidence he didn't quite feel. "I'm Andre Taylor. I have an interview at 10:30 with Ms. Reynolds from Human Resources." The receptionist tapped at her keyboard. "You're very early, Mr. Taylor." "Yes, ma'am." "I believe in making a good first impression." A hint of a smile crossed her face. "Have a seat. I'll let Ms. Reynolds know you're here." Andre sat on one of the modern chairs, which was less comfortable than it looked. From his seat, he could see into the office space beyond glass walls. People hurrying about with purpose, gathered in small groups discussing projects, or focused intently on computer screens. This was the world he wanted to join, where his ideas could come to life, where his work could make a difference. He thought about his mother again, imagining the pride on her face when he called to tell her he got the job. He thought about being able to help with her bills, maybe even convincing her to retire early and rest her tired hands. He thought about moving them both to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood with reliable heat in the winter. "Mr. Taylor?" Andre looked up to see a woman standing before him, hand extended. "I'm Diane Reynolds from HR. You're quite early, but I appreciate punctuality. Would you like some water or coffee before we begin?" Andre stood, shaking her hand firmly. "No, thank you, Ms. Reynolds. I'm ready whenever you are." As he followed her through the office, Andre felt the weight of eyes following him. He stood a little straighter, walked a little more confidently. He belonged here as much as anyone, and today was his chance to prove it. What he didn't know was that the real test of his character was yet to come, and that fate had a surprising twist waiting just around the corner. Andre sat in a small waiting room as Ms. Reynolds went to prepare the interview space. He could feel his heartbeat in his fingertips as he flipped through his portfolio one last time. The clock on the wall showed he still had 20 minutes before the official interview time. Being early had its advantages. It gave him a chance to calm his nerves and observe the workplace culture. Through the glass walls, Andre watched employees moving about with purpose. Their confident strides and animated conversations spoke of a dynamic environment, exactly the kind of place where he had always imagined himself working, a place where ideas mattered more than backgrounds. Ms. Reynolds returned with a smile. We're setting up the conference room. In the meantime, would you mind filling out these forms? She handed him a clipboard with several papers. Of course. Andre accepted the clipboard, grateful for something to occupy his hands. As he filled out the standard employment forms, the office came more alive around him. The morning rush was in full swing, with people arriving with coffee cups in hand, greeting colleagues and settling into their workspaces. Andre soaked it all in, imagining himself as part of this world. He had just finished the paperwork when Ms. Reynolds approached again, this time with a concerned expression. "Mr. Taylor, I'm so sorry, but we need to push your interview back by about an hour. Our CEO has called an unexpected meeting with the hiring team. Would that be all right with you?" Andre felt a moment of disappointment but quickly recovered. "That's no problem at all, Ms. Reynolds. I understand how these things go. Thank you for being so flexible. Feel free to wait here, or if you'd prefer, there's a coffee shop downstairs where you could be more comfortable." Andre considered his options. Staying might make him look eager, but sitting in the waiting area for an hour could also make him seem desperate. "I think I'll take a short walk and come back. Would 11:30 be the new time? Perfect. I'll see you then." Outside, the morning had warmed considerably. Andre loosened his tie slightly and decided to explore the area around the building. This was a part of town he rarely visited, filled with upscale boutiques, fancy coffee shops, and restaurants with menu prices that made him wince. He walked a few blocks, careful not to work up a sweat in his interview suit, taking in the sights and sounds of downtown. The contrast between this neighborhood and his own was stark. Here, people walked with a different kind of confidence, the kind that came from never having to worry if your card would be declined at the grocery store. Andre checked his watch. He still had 45 minutes to kill. He decided to find a quiet spot in a nearby park where he could sit and review his notes one more time. The park was small but well-maintained, with neatly trimmed hedges and colorful flower beds. A few people in business attire sat on benches, eating early lunches or talking on phones. Finding an empty bench beneath a large oak tree, Andre sat down and pulled out his phone. He had prepared answers to dozens of potential interview questions, and now he scrolled through them, refreshing his memory. The breeze felt good against his face, helping to calm his nervousness. A sudden commotion caught his attention. Across the park, a group of people had gathered around something Andre couldn't see. Curious, he stood up and walked closer. As the small crowd parted, he saw an elderly woman sitting on the ground next to a tipped-over wheelchair, her face twisted in pain. Without hesitation, Andre moved forward. "Excuse me, please let me through." The onlookers stepped aside, some looking relieved that someone was taking charge. Andre knelt beside the woman, who appeared to be in her 60s with silver haircut and a stylish bob and wearing an expensive-looking pantsuit. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Do you need an ambulance?" he asked gently. The woman grimaced. "No ambulance, please. I just lost my balance trying to adjust this blasted wheelchair. I think I've twisted my ankle." Andre noticed that one of the wheelchair's wheels was bent at an odd angle. "May I help you up?" She nodded, and with careful movements, Andre helped the woman to her feet. She winced as she tried to put weight on her right foot. "That's definitely sprained," Andre said. "You shouldn't walk on it. Let me take a look at your wheelchair." The woman leaned against a nearby tree trunk while Andre examined the wheelchair. The frame was bent and one wheel was damaged beyond quick repair. "I'm afraid this isn't usable right now," he told her. "It needs professional repair." The woman sighed deeply. "Perfect timing. I have an important meeting in 30 minutes that I absolutely cannot miss." Andre checked his watch again. He still had time before his rescheduled interview, but not a lot of it. Something in him couldn't just walk away, though. His mother had raised him better than that. "Where's your meeting? Maybe I can help you get there." The woman looked at him with surprise, as if she hadn't expected the offer. "It's at the Wilcox building about 3 blocks from here." Andre couldn't help but smile at the coincidence. "That's where I'm headed too. I have an interview there at 11:30. Is that so?" The woman studied him with new interest. "With which company?" "Wilcox Marketing. It's for a junior designer position." Something flickered across the woman's face. Amusement, perhaps, or curiosity. "Well, that is a coincidence. I'm afraid I can't walk 3 blocks on this ankle, and I left my phone in my office." Andre made a quick decision. "I can call a rideshare for us. It'll only take a few minutes to get there." "That's very kind of you, young man. What's your name?" "Andre Taylor, ma'am." He pulled out his phone and opened the rideshare app. "I'm Eleanor," she said, offering no last name. "I appreciate your help, Andre. Not many people would stop what they're doing, especially when they have an important interview." Andre smiled as he requested a car. "My mother would have my hide if I walked past someone who needed help." The woman laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman." "The wisest," Andre agreed. "A car will be here in 2 minutes. Can I do anything else for you while we wait?" Eleanor shook her head. "You've done more than enough. Tell me about this interview of yours. Are you excited?" Andre felt a rush of nerves return at the mention of the interview. "Very excited. And nervous too, I guess. This job would be a big break for me." "Why's that?" Eleanor asked, her eyes keen with interest. "I've been trying to break into the marketing field for a while now. I've got the skills and the education, but—" He paused, unsure how much to share with a stranger. "But the doors haven't exactly been swinging open." Eleanor finished for him. Andre nodded. "Exactly. Wilcox has a reputation for valuing talent over connections, so I'm really hoping this could be my chance." Their rideshare pulled up to the curb, a small silver sedan. Andre helped Eleanor into the back seat before folding up her damaged wheelchair and placing it in the trunk. As they drove the short distance to the Wilcox building, Eleanor asked him more questions about his background and experience. "Where did you study design?" "Community college and then a lot of self-teaching. I couldn't afford a 4-year program, but I've been building my portfolio with freelance work." Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. "Some of the most creative people I know don't have traditional educations. It's about having an eye and understanding people, isn't it?" Andre felt a surge of gratitude for her perspective. "That's exactly what I think. Good design speaks to people, connects with them where they are." Before they knew it, the car was pulling up in front of the Wilcox building. Andre helped Eleanor out of the car and retrieved the wheelchair, which she insisted she could use despite its condition. "I'll just wheel it with one hand," she said. "I've managed worse." Andre looked at his watch again. It was 11:15. He still had time to get upstairs for his interview, but something didn't feel right about leaving Eleanor to struggle with a broken wheelchair. "Let me help you to your meeting first," he offered. "We're going to the same building anyway." Eleanor looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Your interview is important. You don't want to be late?" Andre thought about the opportunity waiting for him upstairs, the job that could change his life. Then he looked at the older woman with her injured ankle and broken wheelchair. "I have a little time," he said, making his decision. "Let's get you where you need to go first." Together they entered the building lobby. The security guard who had scrutinized Andre earlier looked surprised to see him return with Eleanor. "Mrs. W.," the guard began, but Eleanor cut him off with a subtle shake of her head. "This young man is kindly assisting me, George. My wheelchair had a bit of an accident." The guard nodded, now looking at Andre with a completely different expression. "Of course. Do you need any further assistance?" "No, thank you. Mr. Taylor here has been most helpful." As they moved toward the elevators, Andre wondered about the exchange, but didn't ask. They entered an empty elevator, and Eleanor pressed the button for the 12th floor. Andre raised an eyebrow. "12th floor? Wilcox Marketing is on 10, Eleanor smiled. "Yes, but my meeting is on 12. Executive offices." As the elevator climbed, Andre realized he was going to cut it very close with his interview time, but somehow helping Eleanor felt more important in this moment. He could always explain the circumstances to Ms. Reynolds. The elevator doors opened on the 12th floor, revealing a reception area even more impressive than the one on the 10th. The walls were adorned with awards and framed magazine covers featuring Wilcox marketing campaigns. A concerned receptionist immediately stood up when she saw Eleanor. "Mrs. Wilcox?" "What happened?" Andre froze, the name hitting him like a bucket of cold water. He slowly turned to look at the woman he had been helping, suddenly seeing her in a new light. Eleanor Wilcox, the founder and CEO of Wilcox Marketing, gave him a small, knowing smile. "I had a bit of an accident in the park," she explained to the receptionist. "Fortunately, Mr. Taylor here came to my rescue." Andre stood speechless, his mind racing. He had just spent the last 30 minutes with the very person who ultimately controlled his job prospects, and he had no idea. Andre stood frozen in place as the receptionist rushed to get Eleanor a glass of water. His mind was racing, trying to process what he had just learned. The woman he'd been helping all this time, the woman whose wheelchair he'd folded into a trunk, whose personal questions he'd answered so openly, was Eleanor Wilcox herself. The CEO, the founder, the person whose company he was desperate to work for. His watch showed 11:28. 2 minutes until his rescheduled interview was supposed to start, and he was on the wrong floor, standing next to the boss of the entire company. Eleanor noticed his stunned expression and the quick glance at his watch. "You have your interview now, don't you?" Andre nodded, still struggling to find words. "Yes, ma'am." "In 2 minutes. Go," she said with a gentle smile, "and thank you again for your help." Andre hesitated, torn between wanting to make sure she was truly okay and not wanting to miss this opportunity. "Are you sure you'll be all right, Mrs. Wilcox?" "I've survived much worse than a twisted ankle," she assured him. "Don't worry about me." With a quick nod, Andre headed back to the elevator, his heart pounding in his chest. As the doors closed, he caught a glimpse of Eleanor watching him, an unreadable expression on her face. The elevator seemed to move in slow motion as it descended to the 10th floor. Andre used the brief moment to straighten his tie and take a deep breath. His mind was still reeling. Had he made a good impression? Had he said anything inappropriate without realizing who she was? Would she mention their encounter to the hiring team? The doors opened and Andre hurried to the reception desk. The same receptionist from earlier looked up at him. "Mr. Taylor, you're late. Ms. Reynolds has been waiting." "I'm so sorry," Andre said, trying to keep his voice steady. "There was an emergency and I had to help someone." The receptionist gave him a skeptical look but picked up her phone. "Ms. Reynolds? Mr. Taylor has arrived." After a brief pause, she nodded. "Go ahead. Second door on the right." Andre walked quickly down the hallway, his portfolio clutched tightly in his hands. He knocked on the door and entered to find Ms. Reynolds and 2 other people sitting around a table. Their expressions were not welcoming. "Mr. Taylor, we expected you at 11:30, Ms. Reynolds said. Her earlier warmth noticeably diminished. "I sincerely apologize for being late," Andre began. "I was actually in the building on time, but..." A woman with short red hair cut him off. "We have a very tight schedule today, Mr. Taylor. Punctuality is something we value highly at Wilcox Marketing. It shows respect for other people's time." Andre felt his chest tighten. Should he mention his encounter with Eleanor Wilcox? Would that sound like making excuses or name-dropping? Before he could decide, the third interviewer, a man with glasses, gestured to an empty chair. "Let's proceed. We've already lost 5 minutes." The interview began with standard questions about his background and experience. Andre tried to focus to give his best answers, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd already lost his chance. The interviewer's expressions remained neutral, giving away nothing. "Your portfolio shows some interesting work," the red-haired woman commented, flipping through his samples. "But most of these are for very small businesses or community organizations. How would you adapt to working with our national clients?" It was a fair question, one Andre had prepared for. Good design is about understanding the audience and creating something that speaks to them, regardless of scale. "I believe my experience working with small businesses actually gives me an advantage because I've had to be versatile and create effective designs with limited resources." The man with glasses nodded slightly. The first positive reaction Andre had seen. Encouraged, he continued, "I also think bringing a fresh perspective is valuable. Your current team is brilliant, but diversity of experience leads to innovation." The interview continued for another 20 minutes, gradually warming as Andre's passion and knowledge shone through despite his nervous start. By the end, Ms. Reynolds was smiling again, and even the red-haired woman seemed less stern. "Thank you for coming in today, Mr. Taylor," Ms. Reynolds said as they wrapped up. "We'll be in touch soon." Andre stood and shook each of their hands. "Thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited about the possibility of joining your team." As he turned to leave, the man with glasses spoke up. "Mr. Taylor, out of curiosity, what was the emergency that made you late?" Andre paused at the door. This was his chance to mention Eleanor Wilcox, to potentially turn his tardiness into a positive. But something stopped him. It felt wrong to use their encounter that way, to name-drop in an attempt to save himself. "I helped someone who was injured and couldn't walk on their own," he said simply. "It was the right thing to do." The man nodded, exchanging a glance with the others that Andre couldn't interpret. He left the office with a polite goodbye, closing the door behind him. In the hallway, Andre let out a long breath. The interview had gone reasonably well considering the circumstances, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his late arrival had cost him dearly. Companies like Wilcox probably had dozens of qualified candidates for every position. Why would they choose someone who couldn't even show up on time? As he walked back to the reception area, Andre tried to push away the disappointment. He had done what his mother had raised him to do, help someone in need. He couldn't regret that, even if it had cost him this opportunity. The receptionist looked up as he approached. "How did it go?" "As well as could be expected, I guess," Andre replied honestly. "Thank you for asking." He was about to leave when the elevator doors opened and Eleanor Wilcox wheeled herself out, her damaged wheelchair wobbling slightly. She had a small bandage around her ankle now, and she moved with careful determination. The receptionist stood up in surprise. "Mrs. Wilcox, can I help you with anything?" "No, thank you, Deborah. I'm fine." Eleanor's eyes found Andre and she smiled. "Mr. Taylor, you're still here. Good." Andre felt every eye in the office turn to look at him. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as employees tried to figure out why the CEO knew the name of an interview candidate. "Mrs. Wilcox," Andre said with a respectful nod. "How's your ankle?" "Just a sprain, thankfully. Nothing serious." She wheeled herself closer. "Did you make it to your interview on time?" Andre hesitated before answering honestly. "No, ma'am. I was about 10 minutes late." "I see." Eleanor's expression gave nothing away. "And did you tell them why?" "I mentioned helping someone who was injured, but I didn't give specifics." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "You didn't use me as an excuse?" "Most people would have," Andre shook his head. "It didn't seem right, ma'am." A small smile played at the corners of Eleanor's mouth. "Interesting." She turned to the receptionist. "Deborah, please tell Ms. Reynolds. I need to see her and the rest of the hiring committee in my office immediately." The receptionist nodded and picked up her phone as Eleanor turned back to Andre. "Thank you again for your help today. Mr. Taylor, it was enlightening to meet you." With that, she wheeled herself back to the elevator, leaving Andre standing there unsure what to make of the encounter. He could feel the curious stares of everyone around him. Taking a deep breath, Andre decided it was time to go. Whatever was going to happen was out of his hands now. He had done his best, both in helping Eleanor and in the interview itself. That would have to be enough. Outside, the day had grown even warmer. Andre loosened his tie as he walked toward the bus stop, his mind replaying the events of the morning. Meeting Eleanor Wilcox by chance, helping her without knowing who she was, being late to the interview as a result. It all seemed like some strange dream. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "How did it go, baby?" Andre stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. After a moment, he typed, "It was complicated. Tell you when I get home." The bus ride back to his neighborhood felt longer than usual. Andre gazed out the window, watching as the gleaming downtown buildings gave way to more modest neighborhoods. By the time he reached his stop, he had resolved to let go of his disappointment. There would be other opportunities, other interviews. He would keep trying. The familiar sights of his neighborhood welcomed him back. Children playing in the street, neighbors chatting on porches, the smell of someone barbecuing despite it being a weekday. This was real life, not the glossy world of downtown marketing firms. As he approached his apartment building, Andre spotted old Mr. Washington still on his porch, now with a sandwich and a newspaper. "Back so soon?" the old man called out. "How'd it go?" Andre shrugged. "I'm not sure, to be honest." Mr. Washington studied him for a moment. "You look like a man who did right but thinks he did wrong." The observation was so accurate that Andre laughed despite himself. "Something like that. Trust the process, young blood. Good things come back around to good people." Andre nodded, wanting to believe it was true. "I hope you're right, Mr. Washington." Inside his apartment, Andre changed out of his suit, carefully hanging it back up. He had just sat down with a sandwich when his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. His heart jumped to his throat as he answered. "Hello, Andre Taylor speaking." "Mr. Taylor, this is Deborah from Wilcox Marketing." The receptionist's voice sounded different on the phone, more formal. "Mrs. Wilcox has requested that you come back to the office tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Can you make that time?" Andre nearly dropped his sandwich. "Yes, of course. May I ask what this is regarding?" Mrs. Wilcox didn't provide details. "Just be at the front desk at 9 a.m. sharp. I will. Thank you." The call ended, leaving Andre staring at his phone in disbelief. Eleanor Wilcox wanted to see him again. The CEO herself had requested a meeting. What could that mean? He immediately called his mother, who answered on the first ring. "Andre, what happened with the interview?" "Mom," he said, his voice shaking slightly with excitement and nervousness. "You're not going to believe the day I've had." Andre barely slept that night. His mind kept racing with possibilities about why Eleanor Wilcox wanted to see him. Was it good news, bad news, something else entirely? He tossed and turned, playing out various scenarios in his head. By the time his alarm went off at 6 a.m., he was already wide awake. He showered and stood before his closet, considering his options. The navy suit again? Or would that look like he didn't have other clothes? He settled on dark slacks and a light blue button-down shirt. Professional, but not overly formal. His mother was already in the kitchen when he emerged. Despite her early hospital shift starting at 7, she had made him breakfast: eggs, toast, and a small bowl of fruit. "You need to eat," she said, noticing his nervous expression. "Can't meet the big boss on an empty stomach?" Andre smiled, grateful for her support. After he'd called her yesterday and explained everything that had happened, she had listened without interrupting, then simply said, "The Lord works in mysterious ways." It was one of her favorite sayings, especially when life took unexpected turns. "Thanks, Mom." He sat down and forced himself to eat, though his stomach was in knots. "What do you think she wants to talk about?" His mother refilled his orange juice. "I don't know, baby, but I know you did the right thing helping her, and that's what matters. Whatever happens next is just the result of you being who I raised you to be." Those words stayed with Andre as he made his way downtown an hour later. The bus ride felt different today, less filled with desperate hope and more with curious anticipation. He arrived at the Wilcox building 30 minutes early, but this time he didn't wander. He sat in the lobby watching people stream in for work, all of them with purpose and direction. At 8:55, he approached the security desk. The same guard from yesterday recognized him immediately. "Mr. Taylor, good morning. They're expecting you upstairs." The elevator ride to the 12th floor felt shorter than he remembered. When the doors opened, Deborah, the receptionist, greeted him with a smile that seemed more genuine than the day before. "Good morning, Mr. Taylor. Mrs. Wilcox is ready for you. Please follow me." She led him down a hallway lined with awards and framed magazine covers featuring Wilcox marketing campaigns. At the end of the hall was a large corner office with glass walls that offered a spectacular view of the city. Eleanor Wilcox sat behind a sleek desk, her damaged wheelchair replaced with a new one. Her ankle was properly wrapped, and she was reviewing documents when they entered. "Mrs. Wilcox, Mr. Taylor is here," Deborah announced. Eleanor looked up and smiled. "Thank you, Deborah. Please come in, Mr. Taylor." Andre stepped into the office, trying to appear more confident than he felt. The space was impressive but not ostentatious. Beautiful furniture, tasteful art, and one wall covered with photos of Eleanor with various people, some of whom Andre recognized as celebrities and politicians. "Please, have a seat," Eleanor gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Can I offer you coffee, water?" "Water would be great, thank you," Andre replied, his throat suddenly dry. Eleanor nodded to Deborah, who left to fetch the water. Once they were alone, Eleanor folded her hands on her desk and looked at Andre with those penetrating eyes that seemed to see right through him. "So, Mr. Taylor—" "Andre, please," he interjected, then immediately wondered if that had been too forward. But Eleanor smiled. "Andre, then, and you can call me Eleanor, at least in private. I wanted to talk to you about yesterday." Andre nodded, waiting for her to continue. "I've been running this company for over 20 years. In that time, I've interviewed hundreds of people, hired dozens, and watched many of them rise through the ranks or move on to other opportunities. I like to think I'm a good judge of character." Deborah returned with a glass of water, placing it on a coaster near Andre before quietly exiting the office. "Thank you for the water," Andre said, taking a sip to calm his nerves. Eleanor continued, "Yesterday was unusual for me. I don't often find myself in situations where I need help from strangers. My position tends to insulate me from those kinds of vulnerable moments." She adjusted her position in the wheelchair slightly. "When you helped me in the park, you had no idea who I was. You were just a young man helping an older woman who was struggling. And even when you realized you might be late for your interview, your concern was still for my well-being." Andre wanted to say something, but Eleanor raised a hand. "Please let me finish. When you discovered who I was, you had every opportunity to use that connection to your advantage. You could have mentioned to the hiring committee that you were late because you were helping the CEO. Most people would have, but you didn't. She leaned forward slightly. Why? The question caught Andre off guard. He took a moment to consider his answer. It didn't feel right, he said finally. Using your name to get special treatment wouldn't have been honest. I was late because I chose to help someone who needed it. That was my decision, and I was willing to accept the consequences. Eleanor nodded slowly. That's what I thought you might say. She wheeled herself over to the window, looking out at the city below. Do you know what the most valuable quality is in this business, Andre? He considered several possible answers: creativity, strategic thinking, technical skill, before responding. I'm not sure. What do you think it is? Eleanor turned back to face him. Integrity. In a world full of people trying to sell things, integrity is surprisingly rare. We can teach skills. We can nurture creativity. But integrity? That comes from somewhere deeper. She wheeled back to her desk and pressed a button on her phone. Deborah, could you ask Ms. Reynolds and her team to join us, please? Andre's heart began to race again. Were they bringing in the hiring committee to reject him officially, with the CEO present? A few minutes later, Ms. Reynolds entered the office along with the red-haired woman and the man with glasses from yesterday's interview. They looked as confused as Andre felt. Thank you for coming, Eleanor said to them. I wanted to discuss Andre Taylor's application with all of you present. The three interviewers exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. Mrs. Wilcox, Ms. Reynolds began. We were just finalizing our decision about Mr. Taylor's candidacy. As we mentioned in our email this morning, we had concerns about— I know what your concerns were, Eleanor interrupted. His lateness to the interview primarily, and I understand completely. Punctuality is important, she turned to Andre. However, what Ms. Reynolds and her team don't know is why you were late. Andre shifted in his chair, suddenly feeling like he was in the middle of some kind of test. Eleanor continued. Andre was late because he was helping me after I fell in the park and injured my ankle. He made sure I got safely to my meeting, knowing full well it might cost him this opportunity. The three interviewers looked stunned. The red-haired woman was the first to recover. Mr. Taylor didn't mention that it was you he helped, Mrs. Wilcox. No, Eleanor agreed. He didn't, and that's precisely my point. She picked up a folder from her desk. I've reviewed Andre's portfolio and his interview notes. His design work shows creativity and an understanding of different audiences. His background, while not traditional, gives him perspectives that we currently lack on our team. The man with glasses nodded slowly. His work is quite good, especially considering his limited resources. Yes, Eleanor agreed. But what impressed me most wasn't in this folder. It was his character. The way he stopped to help without hesitation. The way he put someone else's needs before his own ambition. The way he refused to name-drop even when it could have saved his candidacy. She looked directly at Andre. Those qualities can't be taught in design school or learned from a tutorial. They come from something deeper. Ms. Reynolds cleared her throat. So you're saying we should reconsider Mr. Taylor's application? Eleanor smiled. I'm saying we should offer him the job today. The room fell silent. Andre felt like he might be dreaming. But, Eleanor continued, not the job he applied for. Now everyone looked confused. Andre most of all. The junior designer position is fine, but I think Andre could offer more value in a different role. I'd like to create a new position for him, community outreach designer. His job would be to identify opportunities for our firm to connect with underserved communities and create campaigns that speak authentically to diverse audiences. She turned to Andre. We have too many clients who want to reach communities they don't understand. Your background combined with your design skills could help bridge that gap. The salary would be higher than the junior position, of course, and you'd report directly to our creative director. Andre was speechless. This was beyond anything he had imagined. What do you think? Eleanor asked him. Finding his voice, Andre replied, I'm honored. But are you sure? You barely know me, Eleanor smiled. I'm a good judge of character, Andre. I've built this company by trusting my instincts about people. And my instinct says you belong here. She looked at the three interviewers. Unless anyone has objections? They shook their heads, though Andre thought he detected a hint of reluctance from the red-haired woman. Excellent, Eleanor said. Ms. Reynolds, please prepare the offer letter this afternoon. I want Andre to start on Monday. Ms. Reynolds nodded. Yes, Mrs. Wilcox. Eleanor turned back to Andre. That gives you the rest of this week to prepare. Is that acceptable? Andre nodded, still trying to process what was happening. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mrs. Wilcox. Eleanor, I promise I won't let you down. I know you won't, she replied. Now there's just one more thing. She wheeled herself to the door and opened it. Deborah, could you send him in, please? A moment later, an older man entered the office. He wore a uniform with the Wilcox Building logo. Andre, this is Vincent, our head of building services. Vincent, this is Andre Taylor, our new community outreach designer. The older man smiled warmly and extended his hand. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Taylor. Andre shook his hand. Likewise, sir. Eleanor continued. Vincent's team is collecting donations for wheelchair repair and accessibility resources for a local community center. I've made a substantial donation myself, but I thought you might be interested in getting involved. Perhaps even designing some materials for their fundraiser. Andre smiled, understanding immediately. I would be honored to help. Wonderful, Eleanor said. Vincent can give you all the details. Consider it your first project with us, unofficial, of course. Until you start on Monday. As everyone filed out of the office, Eleanor called Andre back for a moment. One more thing. Andre, your mother, the one who raised you to help people without expecting anything in return, tell her she raised a good man. Andre felt a lump in his throat. I will. Thank you. As he left the building a few minutes later, portfolio in one hand and Vincent's contact information in the other, Andre could hardly believe how much his life had changed in just 24 hours. All because he had stopped to help someone in need without any thought of reward. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Any news? Andre smiled as he typed his reply. Got the job. But not the one I applied for. Something better. Coming home now to tell you everything. And Mom, you were right. The Lord does work in mysterious ways. 6 months had passed since that life-changing day when Andre had helped Eleanor Wilcox in the park. The morning sun streamed through the windows of his new apartment as he adjusted his tie in front of a full-length mirror that wasn't cracked. The place wasn't fancy by downtown standards, but it was clean, safe, and only a 15-minute bus ride from the office. Most importantly, it had 2 bedrooms, one for him and one for his mother. Looking sharp, his mother said, appearing in the doorway with a cup of coffee in her hands. She was still in her robe, enjoying a rare day off from the hospital. Her schedule was lighter these days, just 3 days a week instead of the punishing 6-day weeks she'd worked for most of Andre's life. Big presentation today, Andre replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. The Pine Street Community Center campaign launches next week. His mother smiled with pride. They're lucky to have you. The Pine Street project was special to Andre. It was the first campaign he'd been given full creative control over, and it was personal. The community center served neighborhoods like the one he'd grown up in, offering after-school programs, job training, and resources for families. When Wilcox Marketing decided to take them on as a pro bono client, Eleanor had immediately assigned Andre to lead the project. You understand what they need, she had told him. You can translate their mission in a way the rest of our team can't. The last 6 months had been a whirlwind of learning, growing, and proving himself. The community outreach designer position had evolved into something more substantial than anyone, perhaps even Eleanor, had initially envisioned. Andre had become a bridge between Wilcox Marketing's corporate clients and communities they wanted to reach, but didn't understand. He finished his coffee and kissed his mother's cheek. Don't forget, we're having dinner with Mr. Washington tonight. I'm picking him up at 6, his mother nodded. I'll make his favorite sweet potato pie. The invitation to Mr. Washington had been Andre's idea. The old man had been one of his biggest supporters over the years, and Andre wanted to share his success with those who had believed in him. It was something he'd been doing regularly, hosting dinners, helping neighbors with bills when he could, contributing to the Neighborhood Watch program. Success is only meaningful when it's shared, Eleanor had told him once, and he'd taken those words to heart. The bus ride to work was familiar now, but Andre still marveled at how different his life had become. He no longer felt like an outsider in the downtown business district. He belonged here, even as he remained connected to his roots. When he arrived at the Wilcox building, the security guard, who now knew him by name, waved him through with a smile. Good luck with the presentation today, Andre. Thanks, George. The elevator carried him to the 10th floor, which housed the creative department. His desk was in the corner with a small sign that read, Community Outreach Design, a title that had become an entire initiative within the company. Morning, Andre, called Phil, the graphic designer who had become one of his closest allies at the firm. Ready for the big reveal? Andre nodded, setting down his bag. As ready as I'll ever be. They're going to love it, Phil assured him. You've poured your heart into this one. At 9:30, Andre made his way to the conference room, his presentation materials loaded on his tablet. The room was already filling with people, not just the creative team, but account managers, executives, and Eleanor herself, who rarely missed Andre's presentations. Her ankle had healed months ago, but the experience had changed something in her too. She had launched a company-wide initiative to partner with community organizations, using Wilcox's expertise to help those who couldn't afford their services. It had become part of the company's identity, generating positive press and attracting clients who shared those values. Good morning, everyone, Andre began once everyone was seated. His nervousness from those early days had been replaced with quiet confidence. Today I'm presenting the final campaign for the Pine Street Community Center. He clicked through slides showing the center's history, its impact on the community, and the challenges it faced with limited funding and awareness. Then he revealed the campaign concept, a series of striking images paired with simple, powerful messages. We're calling it Roots and Wings, Andre explained. The idea is that the center provides both stability and opportunity. Roots, to keep people grounded, and wings to help them soar. The centerpiece was a mural that would be painted on the community center's exterior wall, featuring portraits of real people whose lives had been changed by the center's programs. Andre had personally interviewed each person, capturing their stories in brief, compelling narratives that would be featured on the center's website and social media. What makes this campaign different, Andre continued, is that it's not just about asking for donations. It's about changing how people see this community. It's about dignity, potential, and connection. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment before erupting into applause. Eleanor wheeled herself forward, a broad smile on her face. This is exactly why I created your position, Andre, she said. You've brought something to this company that we were missing. Authentic connection to communities we want to serve. The campaign was approved unanimously, with several executives offering to personally volunteer at the community center's upcoming fundraiser. As people filed out of the conference room, Eleanor asked Andre to stay behind. I wanted to talk to you about something, she said once they were alone. The Roots and Wings concept got me thinking. We've been focused on helping communities through our pro bono work, but there's something else we could be doing. Andre sat down across from her, intrigued. What's that? Internships, Eleanor said. Paid internships specifically for young people from underserved communities. We could partner with high schools and community colleges, create a pipeline for talented kids who might never otherwise get a foot in the door of this industry. Andre felt a surge of excitement. That's a brilliant idea. I think so too, Eleanor agreed. And I want you to help develop it. In fact, I want to expand your role to include overseeing this program. Andre blinked in surprise. That's a lot of responsibility. You've earned it, Eleanor said simply. You've proven yourself not just as a designer, but as someone who understands people. That's rare and valuable. Later that afternoon, Andre visited the Pine Street Community Center to share the approved campaign concepts with the director, a formidable woman named Tanya, who had been running the center for 15 years with limited resources and unlimited determination. This is beautiful. Andre, she said, flipping through the mock-ups, you really captured what we're trying to do here. I had good material to work with, he replied modestly. As they walked through the center, Andre noticed a group of teenagers working on computers in one of the rooms. They were focused intently on their screens, creating digital art with basic software. They're talented, Tanya explained, following his gaze, but they don't have access to professional tools or training. We do what we can with donated equipment and volunteer instructors. Andre thought about Eleanor's internship idea and felt a puzzle piece click into place. What if they had access to professional mentoring? Real-world experience in a marketing firm? Tanya raised an eyebrow. You're thinking what I think you're thinking. Maybe, Andre smiled. I need to work out some details, but Yeah, I think there might be an opportunity here. On his way home that evening, Andre stopped by Mr. Washington's apartment to pick him up for dinner. The old man was waiting on his porch, dressed in his Sunday best, with a small gift bag in his hands. You didn't need to bring anything, Andre told him as they walked to the car. Another new addition to Andre's life, a modest-used sedan that made it easier to help his mother get around. Course I did, Mr. Washington replied. My mama raised me right, same as yours raised you. At dinner, Andre's mother served her famous sweet potato pie while Andre shared stories about his work. Mr. Washington listened attentively, nodding at all the right moments. Always knew you were meant for big things, he said when Andre described the internship program he was developing. But what makes me proudest isn't the fancy job or the nice apartment. What is it? Andre asked. The fact that you're bringing others along with you. Success ain't real if you're the only one enjoying it. Those words stayed with Andre as he drove Mr. Washington home later that evening. They reminded him of something Eleanor had said in one of their early meetings. True success creates ripples that benefit others. Back at his apartment, Andre sat at his desk sketching ideas for the internship program. He envisioned workshops, mentoring sessions, real project experience, all the things he wished he'd had access to when he was younger. The passion he felt for this new initiative rivaled his love for design itself. His phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Got board approval for the internship program. Full funding for 5 years. It's yours to build. Andre smiled, thinking about how his life had changed because of one simple choice to help someone in need. That moment in the park could have gone differently. He could have walked past the struggling woman, focused solely on his interview. He could have mentioned Eleanor's name to the hiring committee when he realized who she was. He could have taken the easier path at several points, but he hadn't. He had followed his mother's teaching, his community's values, and his own moral compass. And somehow those choices had led him here, to a place where he could use his success to create opportunities for others. As he prepared for bed, Andre thought about the teenagers he'd seen at the community center. Maybe one of them would be the first intern in the new program. Maybe in a few years one of them would be sitting in a Wilcox marketing conference room, presenting their own ideas. Maybe the ripples would continue, extending outward in ways he couldn't even imagine yet. The next morning, Andre woke up early, energized by possibility. The sun was just rising as he made coffee and began sketching a logo for the internship program. He decided to call it Roots and Wings, a nod to the campaign that had inspired it and a perfect description of what he hoped to provide. Strong foundations and opportunities to soar. Outside his window, the neighborhood was waking up. A new day was beginning, full of challenges and opportunities. Andre was ready for all of it, grateful for the journey that had brought him here and excited for the path ahead. Not just his own, but the paths he could help create for others.